Good afternoon. You're listening to Gambling with an Edge. Now here are your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Today is a mailbag show where Richard and I answer the questions sent in from you, the listener. Before we get into that, not so long ago was a Bet Bash 2, sponsored by Spanky and other people, mainly on sports betting, but they had gamblers of all sorts. Both Richard and I attended that. What was your reaction to that event, Richard?
I had a great time. It was really good. There were like between 300 and 400 people there. The first day, well, the first night was the registration night, and so there was kind of a meetup in the bar at the D. The next day was an interesting event called Speed Networking, where you filled out a kind of a survey ahead of time about what your interests were and what type of people you wanted to meet. Just like speed dating, except it was, you're just meeting other people who are players of some sort. And, when I filled out the survey, I was mainly there looking to meet people who might be potential guests. Anyway, it was really interesting. I met a couple of guys from the Discord that, it was nice to put a face to a name or to a handle. The next day, I guess there were a number of panel discussions of different types. And anyway, it was just a great event all the way around. I met a lot of people. We have a lot of really interesting guests coming up from having met them there. And, Spanky just did a fantastic job. He was really good about taking feedback from everybody. The only downside to me was that so many of the venues were just so noisy that, people are there because they want to talk and meet people. And if you're in a bar where the music is way too loud, that's a problem. But he definitely got it. He heard it. I'm sure he's going to do things to change it next time. So I will definitely go back again. I had a great time.
Yeah, I will probably go back again too. If he has it at Circa again in the D, it's going to be noisy, which they are such a good venue for a sports related group of seminars because it's owned by Derek and he gets sports betting, and along with the South Point, the Circa are the two best sports books in Vegas. So I don't know where he's going to have it. I skipped the speed networking. At the time, if I had to describe myself according to the options listed, the only thing I could put down was gambler.
Oh, I thought there was an option for media.
Maybe, but I really am not there to meet media. So I suggested afterwards the things if you put in advantage video poker player or advantage slot player, I would have liked to have met up with other ones of those, and I would have had something to bring to the party, and I could have learned. And I sent him a note afterwards, and he seemed very receptive to my comment. And so I'll likely participate in the speed networking next year. Some of the panels were extremely interesting. I watched one in particular was on the Remembering the Stardust, which is when the Stardust was the top sports book in Vegas after the mob guys got moved out. And the guy who ran that, Scotty Shetler, is that his name?
Yeah.
He's 80-ish now. He's written a book. We hope to get him on the air really quickly. Roxy Roxborough was there, along with Richard. I don't remember Richard's last name.
I think it's Schutz is the way it's pronounced. I think Schutz.
Maybe. And that was a fascinating panel. I didn't know a whole lot about that era in sportsbook. It was associated around the games, the Final Four weekend, where there were the semifinals in the swimming pool, and then the finals in the Circa Sportsbook with an open bar, and I blew those off as well. I mean, I'm not there watching the college basketball games a whole lot, so there was a lot of it that I didn't get. Richard was very good at networking with people. I'm not nearly so good at that. That's not one of my strong points. I'm so glad Richard was there. And it was fun. I will go again, but I sent in a number of suggestions to Spanky, and he does seem receptive.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, you know, I think one of Spanky's superpowers is he's the type of guy that makes you feel like you're his best friend when he's talking to you. I mean, he seems to really listen, and anyway, I'm a big fan of Spanky. But I just wanted to say regarding the noise. So yeah, the Final Four was up at Stadium Swim, and you're right. I don't think there's anything they can do about the noise for that. But there was a really interesting event, which was this cocktail party at the top of the Legacy Club, which is a beautiful place up at the top of Circa. Half of it is indoors, half of it is outdoors on the patio with like fire pits and things like that. And this is the place I think that Anthony Curtis mentioned when he was talking about the members reward book, where it has a coupon where you can go up there and get a couple of glasses of free champagne. But I got there it was going to start at 8, and I got there right about 8. And when I got there, I walked in and I looked outside, and there were about 30 young women out there, all dressed up like they were going out to the club. And I was thinking, oh, there must be 2 events. There must be some event they're attending out there. But no, it turned out they were, I guess, called background models, that Spanky just thought that there were way too many guys at this event and it would be good to introduce some women to the event, which I found the whole thing pretty funny. But anyway, that was one of the better events, and that is one where they could control the music because, it seems he had rented out the entire space, and so, I'm sure you could tell them that you didn't want the music if you've got the whole space. So.
Yeah, and for some reason, all those women who were third my age just failed to come and hit on me. I just don't understand that.
Well, usually it's the guy's responsibility to go talk to them, Bob, I think. But
well, my life has enough complications in it without a.
Well, it's funny. I talked to a number of guys who are all like, "I'm not interested in talking to them. I want to talk about sports or about gambling." So yeah, it was entertaining though, and the food was good, and the bar was open, and. So, yeah, it was...
Yeah, I went to, and I asked him on the way out. I told him I had the coupon from the LVA Members Reward for 2 glasses of champagne. 2 people, 2 glasses of champagne. And they said, yes, they do honor him. Sometimes you need a reservation. And there is a 2-drink minimum per person.
Oh, in addition to the champagne?
No, 1 drink in addition to the champagne. The champagne counts as 1, but you need another one. She says bottled water counts. But that and that's a nice place. It's the view is nice given that you're overlooking downtown. But it was good.
Yeah, I also want to say about the panels, I said to Spanky, I would love to, actually I said to Roxy too, I would love to hear a panel of the guys who actually worked at the Stardust when Frank Rosenthal was still running it, because, it was really interesting what these guys, because they took over when the Frank Rosenthal regime left. And they mentioned that they were left with a lot of sports tickets that were, parlays with a huge middle. The guys just wrote, if the line was pick 'em, they were writing themselves tickets for plus 7.5 on both sides and things like that. So, they took a big beating in the beginning when they took over. Another one of the panels, though, that was really interesting was I forget what they called it, but it was about basically how to get away with not having all your accounts closed. Just like we talk about in blackjack, it's easy to learn how to count cards. It's hard to learn how to actually make money at it, and the same is true of sports betting. So at one point, it was funny because Spanky was on the panel and he kind of said something to somebody about not giving away too much information. And then, of course, he was the one who gave away by far the most information. So yeah, that was a really interesting panel too, though, and entertaining. They also had these little kind of optional, I don't know what to call them, classes,
seminars.
Yeah. Colin did one on card counting. Emily Gullickson did one on horse racing and this website that she has, Optics, which was very interesting. She'll be on the show sometime coming up in the future. We haven't had anybody talk about horses in quite a while.
So those were an additional fee. How much were the extra seminars, Richard? Do you remember?
I think they were like $49 or $59 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Galfon did one on poker. So yeah, it was good. It was good. The other thing was, I can't tell you how many guys, told me they were the biggest. They were the best and they were the biggest, not knowing that sometimes they were standing right next to someone who actually is the biggest. And the guys who are really the biggest were kind of the most humble and quiet guys in the room. But yeah, there were some major players there that if you were doing it right, you got to meet and talk to some of the best people in the world.
Very good. Let's get on to questions from our listeners. First question is to me, and that is, if you were playing, years ago, I wrote that playing full pay double bonus with Jacks or Better strategy works better than playing Jacks or Better with Jacks or Better strategy. Do I stand by that? And it is more complicated than I can totally get into on a podcast. My April 12th blog will cover it in more detail. But basically, yes, the 10-7 double bonus normally returns 100.17. But if you play Jacks or Better strategy, it comes out to be about 100.68 rather than 99.68 rather than the 99.54 that Jacks or Better normally includes. So yes, using Jacks or Better strategy on double bonus works better than it does on Jacks or Better. Now, when this was written, all video poker games return the same, were treated the same. Today, that isn't always true. It would be very likely that any casino that has the 10-7 double bonus, that is more than 100%, you only get quarter points or something of that nature compared to Jacks or Better. So if you're playing, so that may no longer be true, not because the math is wrong, it's just that the games do not receive the same benefits from casinos that they used to. Now, Richard's spoken several times about a Discord server. This reader has Discord, but he can't find the server. Can you help him out?
Oh, yeah, I'd have to talk to Rimo whether he wants me to post the link. What happens is when I post the link publicly, then sometimes, you know, a lot of trolls join the server. So, I'll talk to Rimo, but if that person emails me individually, that might be a better way to go about it.
Okay. Looks like you might be getting a lot of email in the near future. Now, this next reader still isn't going out because of the pandemic. He wants to play video poker for winners for entertainment as well as training. The question is, how truly random are the cards dealt using the mixed hand selection? And how truly random are the cards selected on the draw? The reason for the question is he's played a lot on video poker for winners, more than in casino, and don't seem to get as many big hands as I do at the casino. Now, I'm not a programmer and did not design the random number generator for video poker for winners. I'm under the impression that it's equivalent to the RNGs used by IGT. But even if that isn't true, it doesn't matter to me. I use the software to figure out how to play certain hands and how to correct my mistakes. I never use the mixed mode because there are so many average hands that it dilutes my training sessions. I use the advanced mode, which gives me tougher than average hands. Often I use the show mode, which shows me the correct plays I'm dealt. So let's say I'm dealt a 3-card straight flush and 2 high cards, and sometimes you'll hold the straight flush draw, and sometimes you'll hold the high cards, and I'll just announce out loud, high cards, a straight flush, and then hit the button, and it'll show me what's correct. I don't need practice hitting the buttons. I'm just trying to learn from it. To me, the software is a learning tool, not a game. And a high percentage of my success at video poker is having access to computer software that gives me the correct play. On a previous episode of Gambling with an Edge, Richard gets all giddy when talking about facial recognition. Why is that?
I don't know that I get giddy. I've been very, very, very dismissive.
Dubious.
What did you say?
Dubious.
Yeah, I was going to say dismissive. I've been very dismissive of facial recognition technology because every surveillance person I speak to says that they don't use it because it doesn't work, even when they have it. So, technology changes very rapidly, and I'm sure eventually there is going to be good facial recognition. But the problem is, every time a player gets barred and they don't understand why, they immediately think it's because of facial recognition, which I just don't buy. I think it's usually human recognition. Somebody recognized you, or there's a flyer up in the surveillance room and they see you walk in the door and they're just looking at your picture on the flyer or whatever. Now, as I say, it is getting better, and maybe there is some now that if you have a brand new casino and they're starting from scratch, but to have casinos spend a lot of money to upgrade the equipment the cameras and the equipment that they already have. I mean, another thing we hear from surveillance people is that the casinos don't want to spend money on surveillance because it's not a profit center for the casino. So, yeah, so giddy, I think maybe is the wrong adjective, but dismissive, yes, I'm still very dismissive of facial recognition software in casinos.
And I'm far more of a believer than Richard is, with far less evidence. Although I did have a lunch with Ted Whiting 2 or 3 years ago, who is the corporate director of surveillance at MGM Properties. And he showed me some facial recognition stuff. And he's pretty convinced it's pretty good. And so I took him at face value then. I noticed that he, when we went for lunch, we went back to the casino. We were going down this big escalator into the Aria. Players at the Aria know which one I'd be talking about. And he pointed to this camera up above for me to look at it. And he wanted to make sure he had a good shot of me.
Well, that's the other thing about facial recognition is their database needs to have a good, clean shot of your face. Well, if you're, the kind who insists on having a player's card where they scan your ID, well then, yeah, they have a good, clean shot of your face from your driver's license. But if you're a player that, wears a hat and keeps your head down, they have an overhead shot of a guy in a hat. And that's very hard to match with facial recognition. So.
Yep.
But eventually it's going to be really good. I have no doubt that eventually it will be good.
All right, next question. I play Ultimate X Double Bonus in Atlantic City. When I play on a machine that doesn't perform, I jump to another machine. What do you think about that strategy? What do you think about that? And my comment is, I think you're a losing player.
So then it's good, because you're playing less hands. If you get up and move around, you're playing less hands, so you're losing less money. So it's a good strategy.
Well, the pay schedules for Double Bonus, Ultimate X, and Atlantic City are pretty low. The only way to beat them that I know about is to vulture them, meaning that if a player has left unplayed multipliers on the previous hands, then you play 5 coins per line and play off the one hand. So these are 97% games, and they're very difficult to play. And so most players play them poorly. So they're playing this losing game and switching from machine to machine when they lose a few hands in a row still doesn't make it better than a 96% game for them. Next question. I have a gift shop basic strategy card I use for blackjack that I have memorized. I stay out of the middle of the table on craps, except placing bets on the pass line, come line, and taking max odds. For video poker, I'm somewhat proficient at jacks or better and deuces wild, using a simple strategy I found on the Wizard of Odds. See photo. I know how to look for a 9-6 machine and try not to play a machine of less than 8-6, but sometimes you just can't find that machine. Frankly, I think I'm probably at a higher EV than most other people I see in casinos, because I see a lot of dumb players do dumb things. I'm amazed at how many people I see at 6-5 blackjack tables.
Is there a question in there?
There was. So he wants to know how he can get better. And maybe belong to a team. Wants to know how he can do that. So the strategy he sent me for 9-6 jacks was very, very, very basic. Approximately equivalent to the Dancer Daily beginner strategy. And it gives up about 0.25% off of optimal. He says he knows it pretty well. So that sounds like it's another 0.25% off of optimal. I don't know what strategy he's using for Deuces Wild. But there's a lot of different versions of Deuces Wild. When there's a big difference between they pay 15 or 20 for a full house or 10 or 15 for the flush, and the strategy varies a lot. And if he's using one Deuces Wild strategy on any Deuces Wild game he plays, he's taken by far the worst of it. Now, he wants to earn more comps, but he's playing $1.25 a hand in video poker, and he's not going to earn a lot of comps at that. He's playing relatively good games in the casino, and casinos don't give a lot of players back when they're only betting 700 to 1,000 hands, $700 to $1,000 an hour. He says he will play worse than 8-6 jacks unless he can't find them any good, and that part worries me. You have to be able to walk away from bad games. If there's no good games to play at this particular casino for the denomination you want, don't play. And probably 8-6 jacks in and of itself falls into that category. It's 98.4. If you know the 9-6 jack strategy of 99.5, well then play it. Don't go down to the 98.3 just because you can't find any. Their games are out there. You will learn where they are. So until you improve your discipline, you're going to continue to lose and lose more. So I don't know that counting cards is going to help you much in blackjack. You clearly have shown that you don't have the discipline to play the strategies you have very well. Next question. Can the guys who work in a sports book make bets at that book, or do they have to go somewhere else to avoid any conflicts of interest? I would guess they have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know.
Each casino would likely make its own rules. And the same with dealers and other employees. Can they play at the same place? Most places no. Some places yes. It depends.
When I was a dealer, we were allowed to play slots in the casino I worked in if we wanted, but not table games. So, yeah, it just is going to depend on the casino.
Yeah, if I owned a casino, I'd be mixed emotions about that. It's like, I hate to turn away this money, this revenue, but at the same time, if the player has this frame of mind of I'm trying to beat this casino when he's a gambler and I'm trying to help the casino when he's a player, it goes back and forth and it ends up with a confused player or somebody with no clear ideas about what his strategy is.
You know, when Atlantic City opened, dealers were not allowed to gamble anywhere at all in any casino. I don't know. I'm assuming that law must have changed eventually, but that was the way it was initially.
Next question. I was counting down a blackjack game, and when the new hand shuffle was presented to be cut by my neighbor, I saw an ace on the back of the deck. My neighbor declined, so I chopped about the minimum deck allowed from the front. I kept my eye on the discard tray and spread the 3 max hands the round before the ace came out. I managed to catch it on the next round. With max bets out, is something like this a good idea? I do see the last card on shoes quite a bit. Is there positive EV in doing a play like this? If I can judge the locations better, or did I just get lucky gambling this time and fooling myself that there's an EV in this play? Richard.
Your EV when you have an ace as one of your cards is like 50%. So cutting and catching that ace on a max bet was worth more probably than the hour of card counting. So yes, it's a very powerful strategy. Some people can get very, very good at it. And so, yeah, I mean, knowing the exact location, you weren't exact, but knowing the location of a single card can often be a very, very profitable thing. in many games, not just in blackjack.
But if you're going to do this and you're going to cut, it really helps if you know that I cut exactly 24 cards and you physically count out the cards as they come so you know exactly when it's coming. He was keeping his eye on the discard tray and kind of guesstimating when it was coming out. And I'm not sure how much EV there is in that.
Well, I mean, it depends on how good your eyes are, right? I mean, he thought he cut one deck. Many people are pretty good at getting pretty close to one deck. And remember, in blackjack, you can spread to 3 hands, so you don't have to be exact. And as long as there's maybe some buffer with other players at the table so that the dealer doesn't get the ace, you know, it's still big.
What about on a shoe?
Well, this was on a shoe. He was talking
Well,
about.
the first one was on a handheld.
Oh, I thought he said it was a 6-deck game and he had to cut one deck.
No, he said it was first one. He said it was on a handheld, and he cut the minimum number of cards, and then he went to the supposition of was the same thing true if it is a shoe game?
Yeah, yes, the same thing is true. If you can give yourself an ace, it's a 50% advantage. So it's huge.
All right, next question. I just finished Bob's Sex Lies and Video Poker, and also his more Sex Lies and Video Poker.
What? This is a plant.
It wasn't. I would like to read more about those characters. When is Bob going to write another novel? And my answer is possibly when pigs fly. I did write a draft of a third novel with totally new characters and showed it to 2 of my best gambling friends, one of whom was Richard. Both of them agreed that the novel wasn't very good and suggested it never see the light of day. So it won't. Writing novels for me is an expensive endeavor. The sales nowhere near cover the cost of editing, publishing, and printing, and it takes hundreds and hundreds of hours to lose all that money. I sold more in my classes than anywhere else, and now there aren't any classes. Maybe someday a chimpanzee went into outer space way back in the Sputnik area, so maybe pigs will fly someday. I don't know. Next question. Been a recreational gambler for 25 years. I've lost a lot. I know basic strategy and would like to become an AP. Do you think my history of recreational play could potentially be of advantage if I were to transition to AP play, visiting the same locations and related properties? Richard.
Well, it will be until it isn't, right? I mean, once you start winning, they will realize that you're winning, and so it'll buy you a little time, but probably not as much as you would hope.
Would my history of losing make me a potential BP for a team?
Well, at Bet Bash, one of the things they talked about on the panel was something they called whale flipping. And this is where you get a big losing player and use him as a beard to turn him into a winning player. And, this is done in blackjack as well as in sports betting and other things. So, depending on how big a losing player you were, it could be potentially attractive to use you as a BP. Yeah.
But then the team would also have to trust you because you have a lot of bad habits as a recreational player. And
the other thing that the other problem that we ran into in doing this is, when you go after somebody who is very, very successful, and is very wealthy, well, they're not used to taking orders from people, and they don't want to get together and practice. Like, you're talking about practice? Like, let's just go do it. And then you run into this problem where you go to the blackjack table, you win a lot of money, and then the next day the guy says, oh, yeah, but I lost it back playing craps. And, you try to explain to him, look, craps is on you. That has nothing to do with us. So there are big problems with recruiting whale flipping, as they say. So.
All right. Next player enjoys playing video poker on bar tops. On a recent visit to Las Vegas, a particular bar had both IGT bar tops and newer Aristocrat bar tops. The Aristocrat had games with different names on them. Is there any reason they don't use the same names as IGT does? And the answer is, well, IGT holds some patents on the name bonus poker and things like that. So IGT can sell those, the right to use them, as they apparently have done to scientific games, but apparently have not done to aristocratic games. All right, we are going to take a brief commercial break, and we'll be back. The South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. This is more than anyone else has. The promotion in April is the $500,000 plus swipe, spin, and win. Every Monday through Thursday, earn 500 same-day points on slot machines or video poker machines between 3 a.m. and 11 p.m., and you swipe at a kiosk, and you get a gift ranging from 2,000 slot club points worth $6 up to $50 in free play. There's mystery gifts. In the first week anyway, the mystery gifts were logo polo shirts for the most part, a logo sweatshirt or logo t-shirt. Later in the month, presumably there will be a different selection as these logo shirts get all logoed out. At Blackjack Apprenticeship, there will be a boot camp in May. This boot camp is a good way to learn to play blackjack better. Some of our questions today are, how would you learn to play blackjack better? Boot camp is a good way. At videopoker.com, it's the best place to learn lots of games. We're going to give them 2 games of the week because last week my computer died and I didn't give them any. So first one is Quick Quads. Quick Quads is a 6-coin per line bet where a quick quad is a 3 of a kind paired up with 2 other cards whose ranks add up to the rank of the trips. That is 88853 or maybe 444 deuce deuce. It is a fascinating game. I've actually, for equal return, I prefer quick quads to most other games. The strategy is different than it is on regular video poker, but you can download from videopoker.com a quick guide to quick quads that was written by myself along with Glenn Richards. The other game of the week is Ultimate X, the original Ultimate X. Ultimate X is a 10-coin per line game where this hand you earn multipliers for next hand. The correct strategy is a mixture of the value of the current hand and the number of multipliers you have on the next hand. The wizardofodds.com does have Ultimate X strategies for a number of games. There's also the vulturing opportunities, which I discussed earlier in the show. All right, so we are back to our questions. Next question. Should I spread to 2 hands when I'm playing heads up? Don Schlesinger and Katarina Walker both insist that you should never play 2 hands heads up. but most bet spreads and blackjack apprenticeship don't really indicate that you should never change. And when I simulate it with equal rounds per hour, the results are the same or even better with two hands. What is the right answer?
The right answer is it doesn't matter. I mean, you're worried about, pennies, stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Yeah, if you want to get bogged down in a lot of complicated math, Don Schlesinger says if you're playing heads up, you only play one hand, because if you spread to two hands, you're eating up more of the cards during the positive count, so the cut card comes out sooner. Now, an exception to that would be if you want to bet more than the table limit. Let's say the limit on the table is $200, and you would like to be betting more than that. Well, then, even if you're heads up, you want to spread to more than one hand of $200 to just get physically more money on the table. But anyway, as I say, it's really not consequential. Concentrate on more important things like speed of the game, penetration in the deck, and how big your bet spread is.
And the exact rule, is that something to be?
Rules are not as important.
All right, next question. What are your favorite heat tip-offs?
This is dangerous because especially newer players see heat everywhere, right? Anytime anybody in the casino is talking, they must be talking about me because I'm counting cards. So most pit bosses are very bad actors. So, and for some reason, they don't want you to know that they're suspecting you of being an advantage player. So they tend to not look at you, or they get on the phone and they make sure to turn their back to you, but can't help but turn around and glance back at you when they're on the phone. But I think that a lot of players have shown that there are many card counters who have been very successful with just taking the attitude that I'm not going to leave until they throw me out. Because sometimes when you think that's heat, it's actually, a host who's come to ask you if you want a room or something. So, yeah, it's just very, very hard to judge those things. I felt like I had a bit of an edge doing it because I worked in a casino, so I had experienced it from the other side. But I'm sure there were times when I left when I shouldn't have because, I thought there was heat.
All right, another blackjack question. Richard, you're an actor. Have you ever brought a character to the table with you as cover? And do you have a favorite character?
Yeah, it was really not successful. I mean, a lot of that stuff we think is going to be brilliant when we come up with it, but for myself and the other people that I've talked to, for the most part, it just doesn't buy you very much. But at one point, when I was young, new at card counting, and had been getting barred around Vegas, I came up with this character that I called the Mover from Vancouver. And I had this kind of jumpsuit like mechanics wear, and I got a trucker hat and a cigar, a cheap cigar, and I popped my hood and, rubbed grease on my hands. And I went into the Aladdin, and I was sitting on first base, I remember, and whenever the pit boss would come over, I would take the cigar out of my mouth and like spit tobacco toward the pit, which kind of kept them away. But I think they found it odd that this like young guy who looked like a bum basically was pulling thousands of dollars out of his pocket. So I just, the only reason that it was memorable was because one of my teammates happened to be driving by and saw me walking into the Aladdin and was like, "What the hell is that?" You know. So by the time I got back to the team house, there was a lot of discussion about this particular outfit. But yeah, it was fun. As I say, uh, it makes for good stories. Everybody I know has tried some version of these kinds of things, but they weren't really that effective. Although I remember Colin talking about I forget what he dressed up as, a punk rocker or something, him and Ben. That seemed to work very well for them, even in a place they had already been barred. I don't remember the exact story, so sometimes it can work, but for me, I just found it usually was more hassle than it was worth.
Okay. Another one has a video poker question. Once, while patiently waiting for a machine to free up, I noticed another AP walk up and inspect it, noticed the same thing I did. He also sat to wait. When the patron occupying the machine got up, we both approached the machine. He got there first. I explained that I'd been there first, describing his action to make it clear. I'd been there observing the whole time. He simply sat down, said, "I don't think so," and told me to call security if I had an issue. How would you have handled this situation? And in my case, if I'm waiting for a machine and I see another AP hold up, I will approach that person while we're both waiting and say, "I'm here ahead of you. I'm on that machine," right when he gets there. And usually that nips it in the bud. And
Yeah, I think you learned a valuable lesson here. Many APs are not nice when it comes to getting the seat, whether it's on a slot or on a table game. And this happens a lot in table games too, where there are seat wars. And, the people who are win in the case of the seat wars are the people who get there early and they're willing to sit in the seat an hour before the shift change or whatever to lock it up. The harder you work, the more the better you'll do.
And one of the things that I don't want is a loud argument between APs over a machine.
Right. Yeah.
That calls attention to everybody. There's something about this machine that is really desirable to these guys. We better look at it more closely. That does none of us any good.
Yeah. And, I've heard a lot of stories about this, and especially in slots, there are just a lot of these guys who are assholes. I mean, real assholes. And I've heard stories of people calling security on other people and ratting them out and all kinds of stuff. So it's tough out there.
Now, if Richard could only play video poker for his livelihood for the rest of his life, and I could only play blackjack, which one of us would starve to death first?
Probably me.
I don't know. Neither one of us are in a position that we need to play to win. Like, Richard is essentially completely retired, and I'm playing less than I usually do. And we basically have enough to survive on, unless the world's finances go completely crazy, which is possible.
Right, but if we had to play, I suspect you could play more blackjack than I could play video poker.
Maybe. I'd probably have to start traveling. Everything I hear on this show is that it's hard to be a successful card counter if you're strictly in Vegas. So All right. Next question is, where's your favorite place to play? Not quality of games or money made, quality of property and experience.
Well, I mean, quality of property and experience, boy. I mean, because I have like very fond memories of places I played, but it wasn't because you know, uh, I mean, some of the most beautiful casinos I think I've been in were in Russia. Um, you know, especially in St. Petersburg, there was a casino there that was spectacular. Um, and the Casino de Monte Carlo, the original one that Dostoevsky played in or whatever. Um, that's a pretty cool casino too. But yeah, I don't really I don't think I really have one.
Yeah, Resorts World is nice. I'm a big fan of basically whatever Steve Wynn turns out, or he turned out before he got booted. So both the Wynn and Encore would probably be on my such list.
You know, the MGM when it first opened and they had a theme park in the back, and my kids were little. That was that was kind of a great place because my wife could do stuff with the kids while I was busy playing.
All right, this one's for Richard. Walk me through a cash out where the cashier is adamant that you must show ID, even though you're not at CTR levels.
Turn around and walk away. Take your chips and leave. And then when you go back, cash them not so many.
On a different shift.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, usually like under 2,000 is safe in the vast majority of places. So, you cash out 1,900, you shouldn't have that problem.
How do you evaluate whether you've overestimated your edge on a play? What makes you rethink your assumptions?
Um, it's kind of funny. This is going to sound weird, but most of the plays, let me think if this is true, but yeah, I think most of the plays that I made in the last 20 years, we didn't know what our edge was. We just knew it was big. And yeah, so sometimes we ended up thinking, oh, we think our edge is bigger than we thought it was. Um, yeah, I don't know. Once you get to a level where your edges are really big, you kind of stop worrying about what your edge is.
Yeah, whether you have a 40% edge or a 60% edge doesn't matter very much.
Yeah.
Well, but it could affect your Kelly betting.
Nah, I mean, first of all, as you said, you and I have done pretty well, and casino limits really are not high enough to affect Kelly betting, especially when I'm also playing with partners. So maybe we're splitting things three ways. So the Kelly bet between all three of us, yeah, I don't think there's a casino on Earth where that would be an issue. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe, in like when I went to Singapore and just like the average baccarat table had a $600,000 limit, um, and the high roller tables had higher. So I guess that could happen, but usually we're betting at levels where it's not about bankroll, it's about what do we think this casino will stomach.
This next question to both of us, I think I know Richard's answers, but I don't know an answer for myself. The question is, what is the closest you've ever come to quitting being an AP and why?
Well, the closest I came was I quit. The first time it was when
Back in the Alan Woods days.
Yeah. The first time was when I first started counting cards, and I lost for 160 hours. And I was like, this sucks. I quit. And, fortunately, I had a really good friend named Craig who came to me because he had been on my team, and he joined another team, and they started winning. And he came to me and said, hey, you got to give this another shot. Like, just give it another try. And I did. And that was so that was the first time I quit. And then the other times that I quit, it was I didn't call it quitting. I called it I retired. And I've done that 4 or 5 times. So I think the first time I retired was 1983.
I think you retired at least 4 times since we've been doing this show.
That may be too.
But I don't have a good answer to myself. I've changed games, and so I've quit on backgammon, or I've quit on blackjack. But so far, I've always found a new game to take its place. When you've been doing this for a while, the wins don't really move the needle anymore. Was there ever a big win that made you feel a legitimate thrill, like a gambler would feel?
Yeah, there was for me. Well, there were 2 that come to mind. One was a team play, which for me, it's always like sweeter when you have friends involved. And we had I guess you would call a mid 6-figure win, which was really fun and cool. And the other one was my biggest single winning bet was $3,000 straight up on a number on roulette. So.
Is that $1 million?
No, 105,000.
One little decimal place.
Yeah. I wish.
One answer is there was that one time at the MGM where I hit a $100,000 royal, and my wife a half hour later hit one for $400,000, which was by far our single biggest night of gambling. But that really changed my life as a gambler. It became a first book that I wrote about. It gave credence that I was an expert. It's like I was no smarter after I hit those royals than I was the day before. But somehow having hit $500,000 in a half hour made people believe I was legitimate. So it gave credence even though my brains hadn't increased in those few days. But actually, I still get somewhat of a thrill over jackpots. This morning, before the show I was playing, I hit a $4,000 jackpot. And, lifted my hands in the air in victory. I've been on a losing streak recently. $4,000 felt good. So that was fun, even though I've hit, a couple thousand royals. This one felt good. Next question.
Well, we should probably wrap it up. We've been going over an hour.
I don't think so. I think you kept the clock running when we took a break.
Oh, okay.
But it's okay. All right, we can quit. That's good.
Yeah. We'll have many more questions for next time.
All right. So that's going to do it for now. We can always use more questions at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Richard has a Twitter account. You can send them to each of our individual emails. Thank you very much, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.